Hi, my name is Tracy Yemma, and I'm a registered dietitian, and this is Meghan Robohm, and she is a nutritionist, and welcome to Nutrifacts. Today, we are going to talk about vegetarianism and veganism. And
my favorite topic.
Our favorite topic, because Meghan is a vegan. And the reason we want to talk about that is to describe what is it, what does it involve, if it's something you're thinking about, how could you make the transition. It's really just, it's a lifestyle in addition to a way of eating.
Correct.
So why don't we start with, what does it involve?
So what exactly is a vegan? The way I define it is somebody who completely removes any animal products from their diet, including cheeses, so dairy, meats obviously, so any foods that have some sort of animal product, including eggs, anything like that. I think it's really kind of become a big fad today because everybody's looking for that healthy lifestyle, and I think that the reason why I became a vegan is because it was the healthiest option. Rather than just completely cutting out bread, for instance, one lifestyle, completely cutting out meat, one lifestyle, or completely cutting out sugar, I kind of took the healthier approach, and I think that's one of the main reasons why I like this lifestyle the best. But I think it's also important to remember with any lifestyle change to make it gradual, because you're not going to just completely do it cold turkey. I mean, if you can, awesome, good for you, but it kind of sets yourself up for failure a little bit. I feel like if you kind of just jump right into it rather than, and I mean, health-wise too, it's not the best for your body to completely stop something. If you are eating a steak 3 times a week or meat each day and then all of a sudden you're not at all, as well, same with dairy, it can be a big shock to your body. Like any big change to your body can put it into shock.
Well, I think the other thing too that's challenging about that, if you don't gradually transition, there's a lot of fiber involved, and that could cause a lot of upset stomach because your body may not be used to eating all those fruits and vegetables, and if you do it overnight, you may end up with some bloating or some gas and really uncomfortable digestive issues.
Right. Yeah. So there is a right and a wrong way, I guess we're trying to say, to go about this. And I think the number one thing you should do before even thinking about it or starting it is to maybe go to your doctor and have a physical, just to see where your body's at this.
You mean to make sure
level
there's
playing
no
field.
B deficiency,
Yeah,
iron deficiency,
exactly.
zinc deficiency.
And just let him know what you're thinking about doing. Ask him, do you think that this is appropriate for me with my body, my age? And then again, look at what he could, maybe get some information from him, what he thinks is the best way for you to go about it.
Yeah.
Whether it's supplements, or like we said, gradually, non-gradually. So I think it's a really good idea to maybe address the issue with your physician prior to.
I also think an appointment with a registered dietitian is a good thing to do too, because they can assess macronutrients such as calcium, iron, also micronutrients or trace nutrients to make sure that you're not missing out on any important. You're able to get enough from the foods you are eating to compensate for the things that maybe you're not eating.
Absolutely. That was one of my biggest questions before doing this, was asking myself, do I need to take a supplement because I'm cutting out all these other nutrients? But if you eat a well-balanced vegan diet, you do get a lot of those nutrients that you do technically lack from meat and dairy products.
Now, what do you do about the B vitamins?
The B vitamins, I mean, I do take a vegan multivite, which again has all of the essential vitamins for a vegan. There's so many options out there. You can't take a regular multivite, but I do try to eat the most well-balanced that I can
Does it have
each
B12?
day. I believe so, yes, because that's the biggest one, because you're not having meat.
Right.
So
for people who don't know, B12 is a vitamin that's normally found very high in animal products. So when you remove animal products from your diet, sometimes people can develop a B12 deficiency.
Right. Now, technically, if there's other foods that contain the B12, could they get the sufficient enough of that nutrient in their body by not taking a multivitamin if they're just eating any type of food that has B12 in it, or would you suggest?
I think B12.
I guess.
Let's come back to that one.
Yep.
We'll talk about that at our next topic after we've both done a little more research on that.
Right.
One.
I know that it's definitely recommended for you to take a B12.
Yeah, definitely. Now, the other thing that I think is important for people to do to not be so abrupt about the transition is it's a learning process because you're reading food labels and there are
words that you can't describe,
and I think
pronounce.
There's things that are maybe animal sources that maybe you don't know are animal sources, so you have to educate yourself on how to read a food label.
Right.
Because there are foods that maybe you want to avoid, and then they have these animal products in them without you realizing it. It's in the fine print in very small amounts. So maybe it contains trace amounts of milk or trace amounts of something that you're not interested in having as a vegan.
Right. What I love about all labels these days, most labels I should say, they tell you so you don't have to go through all those crazy ingredients. You can see right at the bottom, may contain eggs, may contain milk, produced in a factory where they have they do produce milk products. So it's kind of pretty straightforward these days, and there's so many options, especially with having Whole Foods, Trader Joe's, places like that where you can get gluten-free products, dairy-free products, easy and somewhat affordable. Yeah. So I think it depends on, you definitely need to do your research to figure out how to read a food label correctly. Now, are there what exactly, if somebody was looking at a food label, would they be looking for if they want to go vegan? What's the number one indicator that a food is not vegan?
Well, I think if it contains any kind of dairy or milk product, if it contains any egg product, if it contains any meat, chicken, fish, pork product. Okay. Is there another?
You know what? I've heard of this other ingredient that I can't think of off the top of my head, but it is an ingredient that I would look at a food label and say, okay, it's vegan, because there's nothing of what you just described there. So there are other words for them. I guess we'd have to do a little bit more research, and that's why it's so important. And there's so many books also on vegans, and I mean the internet as well. I actually found a great source today. I think it was called vegan.net or something like that. It had everything that you could ever want to become a vegan.
Nice. Now, what about protein? Because I think it is harder to get protein when you're not using animal products. So what are some of the best sources of protein in the vegan diet?
Becoming a vegan, the number one, the highest form of protein would be any soy product. So which includes tofu, tempeh. They have a lot of milks, like almond milk. They have soy milk. They have soy yogurts. I mean, a lot of people go for peanut butter as well. It's a great source of protein for vegans. It's their go-to. But I think the number one would be tofu. And I know when you hear that word, a lot of people cringe. I did myself because I didn't do my research on it. I just threw it on a salad without just taking the extra firm tofu, threw it on a salad, and tried to eat it. And it is, being a big texture person, very squishy, for lack of a better word. But it does, if you cook it the right way, it picks up any flavors that you cook it in. I love throwing it in a stir fry. I just recently threw it in some egg whites, the egg replacement. It tastes exactly like
the egg replacement. Is that a soy product?
It is. There's actually, I use it a lot in baking because I can't use egg products. They do have an egg replacement. You can find it at almost any grocery store. I'm not sure of the brand, but I know that almost every grocery store has it. And talking about
using... Is it in the egg section?
Correct, yep. Okay. It's right in the egg section. It's in a little carton. So it's a great alternative as well. Even if you're not a vegan, it's a great, healthier alternative.
Now, what about people who don't want to use soy? Because I know it's very controversial for people who have a very strong history of a certain type of breast cancer. And I know that a lot of people are also very concerned about genetically modified organisms, and soy is one of the biggest sources of genetically modified organisms.
Well,
so how do people circumvent that?
Well, if you're trying to stay away from soy products, which you bring up a great point, there's so many other soy sources. There's beans, there's nuts, there's seeds. I actually throw beans on anything that I eat, whether it's a salad, in my soup. It's really my go-to. You can mush them up and make a bean burger. Which is really good and very high in protein.
And I think people forget there's so many varieties of beans. There's garbanzo or chickpeas, there's black beans, there's kidney beans, and they're very versatile. You can use them in soups, you can use them in
anything.
I sometimes saute chickpeas and put them in pita.
Yep, exactly.
And have a little bit of olive oil and some fresh basil and some tomatoes, and it's just garlic. It's delicious.
So I guess what we're trying to say, it's all about experimenting with being a vegan. And again, it comes back to research. But you're never going to know that you like any of these recipes unless you kind of try it.
I think quinoa is a good source too.
Yes, it's a great source. And anything whole grain really is a great source. I actually probably have about 7 different kinds of beans in my closet right now, my pantry right now. But it's also important to realize that you can get it in a can, but you can also get them frozen. I love edamame frozen.
Oh yes, I do like that. Although that is a soy product.
Correct. It is. I just associate it with...
I love them, but if you're trying to stay away from soy.
Right. They have them actually, they have dried beans that you can soak. A lot of people use it for soups, pea soups, anything like that. But you have to remember there's a variety of everything out there, especially these days with everybody trying different lifestyles.
Yeah. It's funny with the milks. I've seen different kinds of milks in the grocery store. There's a rice milk. The almond milk doesn't have that much protein, and the coconut milk has no protein.
No protein.
But I've seen an oatmeal milk. I've seen a hemp milk, which is some protein, and it also has some of the omega-3 fatty acids in it.
So when you say hemp, what exactly is that?
It's made from hemp seed.
Okay. So it's not even a soy.
It's not a soy product.
Yeah, and it's a great source of protein.
It has protein. Yeah, it's not as high as soy.
Right.
But it does have some protein. It's got a nutty flavor. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Get used to it.
It does sound interesting. Now, when you talk about milk or milk substitutes, now can they be fortified with any form of like calcium, protein, anything like that?
They can, and not all are.
Okay.
So that is a good question.
You have to look for it?
Yeah, because I know some almond milks are fortified with calcium and vitamin D, and some are not.
Okay.
So, and even soy. Some soy milks are fortified with vitamin D and some are not.
Right.
For people who are interested in using soy, who are looking for the non-genetically modified organisms, you can find soy products that are organic, non-GMO. And that would satisfy your need to avoid the GMOs.
Okay. So now we're talking about this huge lifestyle change, and yes, it's so convenient to think that, okay, I'm the only one in my apartment or in my house, but what happens when there's, I don't know, you live with your parents, or you live with a boyfriend, you live with some girlfriends.
You have children.
You have roommates.
And you're trying to follow a vegan lifestyle.
Yes. What do you do trying to follow that vegan lifestyle, or how do you even tell them?
I think that would be a huge challenge for most people.
Right.
I think it requires, I don't know if you'd want to call it discipline. I think it would be more motivation.
Yeah.
Significant motivation on the part of the person trying to adhere to the vegan lifestyle.
Right.
To really be selective about what foods are there. I think it really depends on their motivation. What is their reason for becoming a vegan?
Yeah.
You know, some people are doing it for health reasons. Some people are doing it for moral reasons.
Right.
So I think it really depends on what that person's motivation is.
Right.
And that would allow them to pick and choose what they are going to eat at that particular event. I do think it does present challenges.
It does, and I kind of went through that about 2 years ago when I decided to do it, because I was living with my parents right out of college, and I kind of presented the idea, and all of them were like, okay, let's all do it. A day later, my dad was like, well, I'm just going to have turkey once a week, but then I'm going to be vegan the rest of the time. I think it comes down to kind of explaining to them exactly what the lifestyle is and what it entails, and showing them the benefits of it. I think that's the best, because they know that you're doing it for health reasons rather than, or moral reasons, rather than just it's something that you woke up one morning and decided to do. So I think it's important for you to just be honest with them.
Yeah.
And let them know, because I'm sure they're going to have a lot of fears. Why are you doing this? How much is it going to cost? Well, what about our groceries? What do I have to buy you now?
Yeah.
So it's important just to be honest with them.
Right.
And maybe just say, I'm going to help you through it. I'm going to walk you through it. I'm going to show you by maybe creating a vegan meal once a week to start, just to show them that, look, this does taste exactly like this meal. It's just alternatives.
Well, and I think sometimes too, it's, you know, sometimes it depends on the person, because if they are really open-minded and they're willing to try new recipes and new products, I think it could be a very easy transition. I think if you've got someone who maybe is a little less open or less flexible to try new things, then you have a little more of a challenge. I think a good way to start would be to maybe, instead of making the protein food the center of the plate and the focus of the meal, one way to gradually transition over is to maybe make the meat protein an ingredient in the main dish rather than the center of the plate and the focus of the meal.
Exactly.
So rather than putting, let's say, a 6-ounce piece of chicken on the plate with mashed potatoes and vegetables, you create some kind of casserole with rice and vegetables and chicken, but maybe now the chicken is only 2 or 3 ounces and the vegetables are more volume.
Right.
So that you're gradually making this change, and most people don't even notice such a change.
Right. Exactly. I do that a lot with stir fries. It's a great example.
Yep.
Finding a great recipe for any recipe for a stir fry is great, because it's a majority of it is vegetables, and then again it's finding that protein source, whether it's the chicken for your family that still is chooses not to be a vegan. You can have maybe 2 different portions. Say this is the vegan portion and this is the regular portion that you guys would eat. What exactly is the difference between the two? And does it taste is there that big of a taste difference? I guarantee that they're going to agree with you and say that it does taste pretty similar. So whether it's putting chicken in there, shrimp, tofu, it does taste pretty similar.
Yeah. My experience has been that, although I have had people just have sort of a stigma about trying any kind of soy product. I think there's just so many misconceptions out there about soy that a lot of people are not willing to even try soy. So sometimes I find using a product, creating a meal that has no animal protein and no soy can sometimes be more acceptable than trying to use the soy as the protein substitute.
Right.
Where I've made this amazing stir fry and it's all vegetables and it's brown rice, and if you have a wonderful sauce to go with it, a lot of times people don't even miss the protein at all.
Right. I think it's just kind of become a part of the American tradition with having that, like you said, focused around that meat portion.
Oh, definitely.
So that's what I think makes it not unacceptable, but a little bit frowned upon once you first start to do it.
Right.
Especially, I mean, we talk about family now. What about friends?
Yep.
I have a lot of friends who say, oh, well, what are you going to eat when we go out to dinner? Like I said, not only do the grocery stores have vegan or vegetarian options, most restaurants do now. And you can make anything you want on the menu vegetarian.
Yep.
Mostly. I shouldn't say anything you want on the menu. I mean, there's salads. Again, you can ask for without the protein or anything like that. Most dishes will allow that. It's important to realize that you're not making the food, somebody else is, so you're not always sure of what's going into it.
Yeah, I think for people who are strict vegans, eating out can be a challenge, because you don't know if behind the scenes maybe they made that maybe they made that brown rice in a chicken broth.
Right.
I don't think there's any way, if you're not producing it, to really ensure that it's truly a vegan meal.
I've been to a couple restaurants where if you off the bat say, well, I don't want cheese or anything like that, they'll say, well, do you have an allergy? And then they'll cook it in a separate kitchen.
Oh, so it's almost easier to say, yes, I have
So yes, I always say, yes, I have an allergy, because it's cooked in a separate kitchen. But that doesn't always happen. So we can't always bank on that.
Yeah.
But there are, especially in the city, some great vegetarian, vegan restaurants.
Yes, I have noticed that there does seem to be an increase. I don't necessarily know if we should
promote them,
promote
but
them.
they are.
But I do think there are
don't
definitely
shy away.
more and more up and coming restaurants that are fantastic, and they cater to vegetarians and non-vegetarians alike. I mean, I won't say the name, but I told you about that place in Cambridge, Central Square. That is unreal. And they have a line. I don't even want to tell people about it because then it will put my secret out there.
That's
and then
why
the
we're
line
not
will be
saying
even
it.
longer. But it's unreal. I have not had a bad experience yet. I've been there multiple times. The line is out the door, and the food is heavenly. And it is vegetarian or vegan if you want to. Which actually brings me to another question. So there are multiple forms of vegetarianism.
Right.
There is vegan, which is
strictly no meat, no dairy. So
no
animal products, no
whatsoever.
Dairy whatsoever, no eggs.
Right.
And then there's multiple vegetarian options. So how would you define a vegetarian? Straight vegetarian. It's tough.
I would
there's
say
so many.
It's amazing. Over the years, I have met several people who will refer to themselves as a vegetarian, and they simply don't eat red meat.
Yeah.
But they will consider themselves vegetarian even if they eat chicken and fish.
Right. So it's hard.
There are names for these types of vegetarians. There's the lacto-vegetarian, which includes milk.
Right.
There's the ovo-vegetarian, which includes eggs. There's the lacto-ovo-vegetarian, which is milk and eggs. There's the pesca-vegetarian, which is fish only. And then there's the straight vegan, which is no animal products. Do you know of any others?
I don't. I believe vegetarian, a straight vegetarian is just, well, I guess that's the lacto.
Dairy and eggs, right?
Yeah, so it's the
lacto.
So I mean, there's not. You don't have to call yourself a lacto-vegetarian. You're a vegetarian, but you have certain foods that you do eat, which you still include in your diet.
Right.
So being a vegan, we talked about nutrients and all that, and it does include all your. Choosing this lifestyle is a good idea, is what I'm trying to talk about. It's because it does include vegetables, it includes your grains, it includes all the RDAs for your nutrition RDAs for the day. But you could technically consume a vegan diet by consuming white bread, flour, chocolate, alcohol. But would that technically be the healthiest way? No. So it's still trying, like I said, to consume a well-balanced diet. So when we say vegan, we're not just saying that you can't eat anything that has dairy or animal product. It has to be a well-balanced diet, I guess I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the other challenge for people who are vegetarian is getting enough iron, especially women of childbearing age.
Right.
Trying to find good sources of iron.
Right. And there's a great source is spinach. It's a great source.
Spinach is a good source. However, it does have oxalates in it, which makes it a little more difficult to absorb.
What foods would you recommend they eat that spinach with to allow for the absorption?
Well, when you talk about iron, there's two forms of iron. There's what's called heme iron, which is iron that is found in animal sources only. And our bodies can actually metabolize about 90% of that iron. Then there's what's called non-heme iron, which is a vegetarian sources of iron, and our bodies can only metabolize about 10% of that iron.
Right.
Now, when you combine the iron, regardless of the source, with a source of vitamin C, that vitamin C aids the absorption of the iron regardless of the source. So if you're using a non-heme source of iron, which spinach does have iron, but it does also have those oxalates, which tend to make it harder to absorb. If you combine it with a source of vitamin C, then it would make it easier for your body to utilize that iron.
Okay. So would you say that, like we were talking about milks, for instance, do they fortify milk with iron and all that? No, they don't have any fortified products?
Iron is, you can find iron in fortified cereals. A lot of cereals have iron fortified in them. I think beans have some iron.
Right.
Spinach has iron. Sesame seeds have iron. There are lots and lots of vegetarian sources of iron, but it's best if you combine them with a source of vitamin C, which would be oranges, tomatoes, cantaloupes. Most of your fruits and vegetables are going to have some vitamin C.
So you're suggesting that they have both in one, almost like a well-balanced?
It would be good to combine them in the same meal, if you could.
Like we talk about having carbs and a protein.
Like if you had a bean dish and had tomatoes in it.
Yeah.
That would be iron. With the tomatoes would be the vitamin C.
So it's just finding a well-balanced portion.
Yep. Like the salad I was talking about, the chickpeas with the basil, with the pita bread, with the tomatoes, that's combining iron and vitamin C, so it increases the absorption.
So would you suggest that a vegan or a vegetarian take a supplement? Because they're not going to get enough? Or
I think supplements are controversial. I am a believer in a supplement because
some people aren't. Yeah.
I do find that most people don't eat all the nutrients they need to eat on a daily basis every day. And then on top of that, you have to look at the source of the food. Are we eating locally grown? Are we eating organic? Sometimes it's hard to figure out where our food is coming from. We live in New England. We're not eating cantaloupes in January that were grown in the backyard.
Right.
So if we're eating cantaloupes, they're probably coming from South America.
Right.
So that means they've traveled 3,000 miles to get to us. Maybe
how fresh are they?
3 weeks on a truck. We don't know how fresh they are.
Right.
The other thing that has been a problem is there has been, I don't know if you want to call it abuse of the soil, but maybe the soil hasn't been rotated the way it's supposed to be rotated, so we don't know the quality of the soil, which is where a lot of the nutrients in our foods come from. So if the soil isn't great, or if the crops aren't rotated, or if the food is traveling a long distance, or if it's sitting in your fridge for a while, what is the nutritional value of that food?
Right.
There's really no way of knowing. So I feel like it's just good insurance to take one. Probably not going to hurt you. There's hundreds of multivitamins out there in the market. I'm not going to endorse a particular brand.
Right.
But if you're a vegetarian, there are vegan sources, plant-based sources of vitamins and minerals on the market.
Right. And if you have any questions with that, anybody at any type of supplement store or a grocery store that sells these particular vitamins, supplements, most of them have the knowledge to be able to tell you what the best one would be for your particular personality, your diet.
Yeah,
so
everybody's
again,
needs are different.
Right, it goes back to research.
Right. Again, I won't endorse any particular product, but there are many, many whole food, plant-based, vegan vitamin sources on the market.
Right.
Some of them include probiotics. Some of them include, things that wheatgrass and all these other things that maybe you need or maybe you don't need. It's really dependent on what your unique goals are.
Correct.
So, in summary, the vegan/vegetarian lifestyle, while I think it's difficult to adopt in the beginning, is a very, 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 very healthy way to live.
Believe me, it was so hard. I just went cold turkey. Like we told you not to do that. I did it, and it was tough. But people always come up to me and say, well, how do you not eat chocolate anymore? That's so hard. How do you not eat that? I have to eat that every day. It's my ritual. To tell you the truth, we talk about alternatives. I've come up with alternatives that kind of satisfy that craving for me. And it's possible for you to do it too.
Yeah.
So people say when you stop eating something, you stop craving it as well over a certain amount of time.
Right.
For instance, over Lent, I gave up bread, and all I do is crave bread right now because it's only been 2 weeks. So it does take time. And it's important to realize that if you do mess up, if by accident you have an animal product, you have a dairy product, it's not the end of the world. You're doing it for yourself, nobody else. So just remember that. So it goes back to remembering why you started in the first place. And it's very possible to do.
I'm just going to give a quick rundown of a couple of books that are recommended. Vegan for Life, Simply Vegan, Becoming Vegan, and Vegetarian Sports Nutrition. Thank you so much for joining us tonight on Nutrifacts, and hopefully you learned a little bit more about vegan and vegetarian lifestyle, and maybe you'll try it out.
Do a little bit of research. I promise you won't be disappointed.
Thank you.
Have a good night.